For nearly 10 years, we watched our next guest portray high school tutor Haley James Scott on One Tree Hill, but few people knew what was going on. Exactly. But few people didn't know what was going on with her behind the scenes. She says she was unknowingly drawn into a faith-based group she calls a cult, where she says that she suffered abuse and control until she found a way out a decade later. She details it all in her new book, Dinner for Vampires, which is a great title. Life on a cult TV show while also in an actual cult. It's the greatest title. Let's welcome Bethany Joy Lenz, everybody. Great title.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I was like, that would definitely, I would pull that off the shelf and be like, I'm sorry, what? Like, so your stage name is Bethany, but you prefer Joy.
Yeah,
right?
everybody calls me Joy.
Yeah. So you grew up pretty religious, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Me as well. Yeah.
Pretty typical modern Western evangelical environment. It was a charismatic church. My parents were hippies in the 70s, you know, part of that Jesus Revolution movement. And I really understood the faith as something to be, it was really simple to me. You know, I have a story in the book about my dad at my bedside talking about how God is like a light turned on in a dark room. Yeah, so it's like as long as you keep God turned on, the light just eats up all the darkness, it eats up all the badness.
Yeah.
And
which is beautiful.
it's great and so easy for a kid to understand. And then as I got older and matured, that faith became my own in its own way. And then I worked as an actress in New York, and then I spent all my money, which wasn't very much, but you know, a lot for a 19-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And I didn't have anybody giving me good advice about money, so I just went, oh, wait, I don't have any more. I guess I should go to LA.
I should do something.
Yeah, so, you know, as you do when you're 19, 20 years old, I just packed up and left and moved to LA.
Yeah, I did the same at 19. Even before Idol, I did the same thing.
Did
I just cross country. Yeah. Well, you weren't going to make it where I was from, so no one was going to hear me there. But then you found a community in North Hollywood, right?
Yes. In North Hollywood, I had a friend who was a part of this home group Bible study, which had been very normal for me.
Growing up, me as well.
Right, and a lot of just Protestant churches will do this. It's a really common thing on a Wednesday night or a Sunday.
Baptist as well. Yep.
Home church. It just felt comfortable. It felt like home, and I had desperately wanted a sense of belonging. I was an only child.
Yeah.
Theater had only been my safe space until then. Theater and church, really, and so it felt like a really valuable thing in my life.
Absolutely. So how and when did you start to see things change?
Group started out as something I think that was really lovely, and then someone came in who was a pastor from a church in another state, and knew people in the group. And I talk about this in the book in detail. Obviously, it's the chronology of the story, but he took advantage. Like really saw dollar signs, saw a lot of young industry professionals, entertainment industry professionals, and just went, I know what to do here. And it took about a year, but it went from being something that was just a community of friends to, it started to become more controlling and more demanding and more high demand, which is really the legal word for cult, because cult is so undefinable.
Yeah.
But I didn't see the signs then because I wanted to belong so badly.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of us have been in similar situations, and people do try and reach out. Did you have people that did try and reach out to you and be like, hey, this isn't what life should be like?
Yeah, I did. I had, the hard part is anyone who expressed objections or concerns, immediately I was like, oh, you're not spiritually aware enough. You know, there's a real sense of superiority that comes in with that.
Because
mindset.
you've kind of been brainwashed behind closed doors as well.
Right.
And you've been told things that maybe aren't truths about those people.
Exactly, yeah. And so anybody who questions it, you kind of push them away. But they stood by and they just sort of kept checking in on me and wanted to make sure it wasn't, you know, is this dangerous? Is she being taken advantage of? But I wouldn't let anybody in, so it was hard for them to really know.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, the nature of it is isolation.
Yeah. Well, you say that that's part of the takeaway from your experiences, just show up, right?
Yeah, I write about that in the book, that ultimately the thing that made the biggest difference for me when I was on my way out was being able to have people on the other side of that I trusted, because...
You had somewhere to go.
I did, and there weren't many, but there were a few, and it made all the difference. I mean, if you know someone who's involved in something like this, a high-demand group, just be there so that when the day arrives that they realize something's off, they'll know who to call. You could be that person.
I think this is unfortunately going to be a very important book, and just you being honest about your life, because I think a lot of more people than you realized are either in relationships or groups or whatever. I think a lot of us, because a lot of people prey on that, you know, so unfortunately. So I think it's going to be very helpful. Thank you for being so open about it.
Absolutely.
It's not easy. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know, like, what good are our mistakes if we can't share them? You know?
Yeah, and learn from each other, absolutely. Again, Joy's book is called Dinner for Vampires. It's just a great title. It's available now. We'll be right back, everybody.
Thank you.